Welcome to the Boston Community Commemoration of Yom HaShoah. My name is David Schechter. I'm co-chair of the Yom HaShoah Committee of the JCRC. Each year, we gather to honor the lives and legacy of those murdered in the Shoah. We come together across community organizations, faith congregations, schools, survivor families, and as elected leaders in unity. We remember those lost, and we reflect on the lessons their memory has taught us. We have learned to speak out against antisemitism and hate whenever and wherever they arise, and that we must do so in relationship with others. We honor those relationships today, especially as we honor the liberators on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, Buchenwald, Bergen-Belsen, and Dachau. And on this commemoration, we continue to be joined by friends and allies who will share words of solidarity. We have learned resilience, even in the most difficult of times, to find joy and hope in the voices of new generations. Today, we celebrate those voices through the Izzy Arbeiter Holocaust Essay Contest winners. And we have learned that sharing our stories, keeping memories alive, is itself an act of resistance and legacy. We will hear that legacy carried forward in the powerful testimony of our survivor speaker today, Tamara Levovich, who embodies the strength and compassion. As we mark another Yom HaShoah together, I thank each of you for your presence and for the contributions you have made to today's event. Seeing this room so full reminds us that we are living out our sacred responsibility to honor the 6 million Jews murdered and to say together with strength, never again.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home
Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of the Lord is the human soul. From these words in the book of Proverbs, we take the custom of lighting a candle on the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one. Of those who survived the Holocaust, most lost someone, some lost many, others, like my father, lost everyone. And still we will never know how many perished, leaving no one to remember them. Survivors of the Holocaust do not need a Holocaust remembrance observance. Every day they remember the Holocaust. Today's observance is for us so that we can remember the 6 million, including 1.5 million children who perished during the war. I would like to invite the finalists of the Izzy Arbeiter contest to light the first candle in memory of the 6 million who perished. We invite Rick Mann, chairman of the committee for so many years that put this program together, to light a candle in memory of Dr. Ludwig Zamansky. Ludwig, a survivor, vice president of the Association of Survivors, our unofficial official photographer, and the last survivor to hold a seat on this committee. We remember him today. Each person who survived the Holocaust is a miracle. It's a miracle that they survived when others didn't. It's a miracle that they didn't die of disease, dehydration, starvation, being shot, being wounded, or a broken heart. Today we remember people from our community who are no longer with us, who survived, who are part of our community. We remember Anna Arbeiter, survivor from Poland, wife of Izzy Arbeiter. And in many ways, I think we all know that if it wasn't for Anna, Izzy would not have survived. She saved him on several occasions. I ask Herbert Birnbaum to come up and light the candles on behalf of the survivors that we have recently lost. We lost Ruben Kerzner, a survivor from Poland, over 100 years old. Anna was a youngster. She was only 99. We remember Etta Glusbaum, Lily Salkman. We remember Marcia Folb, spouse of Isaac Cott, president of Generations After. And we remember someone from our greater community, Rose Gironi. At 112 years old, the oldest survivor that we had records of. Some of you may recall just a few years ago, the oldest person to live in the world who passed away was a 113-year-old Israeli survivor of the Holocaust. Survivors have strong blood. 80 years ago, we're grateful there were liberators that came to our rescue. I had an opportunity to hear a liberator speak not too long ago. He was a member of the 11th Armored Division that liberated Mauthausen, where my father was, where Henry Lefman was, where Dr. John Saunders was, where Irv Kempner's father was, to name a few. And he said, each day since liberation, he had bad dreams. And each day since liberation, he said to himself, was it worth it? He was a 19-year-old boy, a child himself. I stood there next to my nephew, who at the time was 12 years old, and barely said 2 words to anybody in those days. And he looked up at this man and he said, thank you for my life. My 12-year-old nephew understood what this liberator did. Well, we're fortunate. In our community, there are liberators who lived amongst us. And each year, for many years, 2 of them came to each and every one of these observances. Today, we'd like to invite their family to join us up here to light a candle on behalf of the liberators and the veterans of World War II. We remember Al Rosen, and we remember Chad Rogers. They would have been 99 and 100 years old. So they too, 80 years ago, were 19 and 20 years old when they saved so many lives. And we are grateful to their family. Thank you. Today, we will have the honor of hearing a survivor speak to tell her family history. Someone taught me many years ago that we should use the word history and not say the word story. Because if you say she's coming to say her story, there are those that would say it's fabricated. It's not fabricated. We all know too well what our parents and our grandparents and other relatives went through. It's an opportunity that we need to take each and every time we can to hear a Holocaust survivor, an eyewitness to what happened during World War II, speak. Today, we invite Tamara Lovovich to come up and light a candle in memory of members of her family, her grandparents who perished during the war, and those that survived that have since passed away, her mother, her father, her husband, and other members of her family. Recently, my husband and I had an opportunity to take a trip to Europe on a Jewish heritage tour. We started the trip at Dachau, where my husband's father was kept. The trip continued through Europe and took us to Mauthausen. Walking through the gates of this horrific, horrible, frightful place, for the first time in my life, I did not picture my father as a strong 6-foot-tall man. I pictured a scared 13-year-old boy, alone in the world. When the war ended, he would find out that the rest of his family had been taken to Auschwitz to be killed. He was tall for his age, and they probably thought he was 15 and could work harder. So they brought him to Mauthausen. Mauthausen also had gas chambers. It also had crematory. It was a vile place. As we walked out that day, I felt that we were walking out with my father. The trip ended in Budapest. Before we left Boston, I said to my husband, I cannot be an hour and a half away from the village that my father grew up in and not go there. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what we would see. But I said, even if I just stand in the middle of the city center, I need to be there. Before leaving Boston, I sent out a lot of emails with requests for help. Could anyone tell me an address? Could anyone give me any information? I did not receive any replies. And then one day, I received a message. And the message started off by saying, do not tell anyone I replied to your email, I will get in trouble. 2 years ago. He said, I know a woman who teaches at a Jewish day school in Budapest, but she comes from your father's town, Shalgatorian. And in the summer when she's not teaching, she goes back there. I got in touch with that woman. And fortunately, because it was summer and she was off from school, she could invest a little time. This village, and perhaps others in Hungary and others elsewhere in Europe, decided after World War II that it would be a good idea to change the names of streets. So perhaps 75 years later, someone like me would not come looking for my grandparents' home. So she took a map from the 1920s and compared it to a map from recently. She did research and she found out their home address and she figured out what the new address is. We were driven an hour and a half from Budapest to Shalgatorian and we met her. And there she was with her father and her 10-year-old son. And the three of them maintain the one and only Jewish cemetery that still exists in that area. And as I walked through the cemetery, almost every name on every grave was before 1940, and many of them had the last name Schwartz, which happens to be my father's mother's maiden name. So I said, I'm here with my relatives. Her grandparents survived the Holocaust, and they returned to this village, their hometown. Growing up, I knew that I was a child of a survivor. I knew that my father was the only person from his entire family to survive. And I knew these words, heard over and over again, that when the war ended, there was no one in the world that my father knew from before the war. Every kid he went to school with had been killed. Every person who lived in his community had been killed. And every member of his family. The International Red Cross did two things for him upon liberation. They weighed him. He weighed less than 90 pounds. And one by one, they told him that his mother had been killed, his father had been killed, his brother, his sister, his grandmother, and every name of every person he could think of that perhaps they could fix him up with so he could go live with somebody who had survived. When we walked through that cemetery with this woman and her father and her grandson, there was a very large memorial the size of a wall. And on that memorial, her grandparents had engraved the names of everyone from that community who perished. From the thousands of people, Jewish people, who lived in that community before the war, only 40 families came back. So the words that I grew up with, that anyone my father knew before the war were not alive after the war, were very true to me. I looked at the wall, and I saw the names of my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle. And then, big surprise, I saw my father's name on the wall. He had never gone back, and her grandparents assumed that he too perished with the rest of his family. And my husband said, should we ask them to cross off that name or cover it up? And I said no, because part of me wanted to feel and to know that a piece of my father still existed in a land that he called home. I'd like to light this candle in honor of that entire community that were killed during World War II. May those who perished rest in peace, knowing that there were survivors, knowing that liberators came in time, and how grateful we are for that. May we continue to gather as a community to remember those that have no one to remember them. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, we gather here today to remember. To remember not only the horrors endured, the lives lost, the communities erased, but to remember a chapter so dark, so uniquely evil that it stands alone in human history. A planned, systematic attempt to eliminate the Jewish people from the face of earth. The Holocaust did not begin with death camps. It began with words. It began with hate. It began when antisemitism, that ancient hatred, was allowed to grow unchallenged, to gain a foothold in the hearts and minds of ordinary people. When the idea that Jews were the other, dangerous and unwelcome, was given legitimacy by leaders, by governments, by neighbors. And the result was catastrophic. A world disfigured, millions of lives extinguished, millions of unique lives, identities, and stories perished in Auschwitz and many other death camps. An irreplaceable, vibrant, and existent shattered. In 1943, as horrifying news from Europe reached Eretz Israel, the Israeli poet Avraham Shlonsky wrote a powerful poem, The Vow. His words, born of grief and resilience, continue to echo and guide us more than 8 decades later. By the knowledge of my eyes that saw the bereavement and burdened my broken heart with cries. By the knowledge of my mercy that taught me to forgive until came the days that threatened to forsake. I vowed to remember everything, to remember and to forget nothing. על דעת עיניי שראו את השכול ועמסו זעקות על ליבי השכוח. על דעת רחמיי שהורונו למחול, עד באו ימים שאיימו מלסלוח. נדרתי הנדר, לזכור את הכל, לזכור ודבר לא לשכוח. Today, we must be clear. Antisemitism is not a Jewish problem. It's a societal problem. When any society allows hatred to become normalized, when it grants twisted ideas about Jews or any other people a seat at the table, it endangers itself. When in times of political turmoil, Jews are used as a scapegoat, accused of being responsible for one crisis or another, that is dangerously familiar. The lessons of the Holocaust demand that we ask ourselves, not only today, but every day, what are we doing to remember? What are we doing to remember the deeply anchored and inspiring Jewish life that once flourished and now vanished? The synagogues, the schools, the laughter, the music, now silenced forever. Our first and greatest responsibility is education. We must educate ourselves and others. We must tell the stories of individuals, of families, of entire communities, so they are not forgotten. We must bear witness to the truth and refuse to let distortion, denial, or silence erase the memory of what had happened. This is our charge, to remember and to act. Let Yom HaShoah not only be a day of mourning, but a call to action, in memory of those who perished and for the sake of all humanity. We commit ourselves to remembrance, to education, to vigilance, to hope, and above all, to our future and to the future of our children. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come together today to grieve and remember the 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust, to pay tribute to the bravery of the Jews who fought against the tyranny of the Nazi regime, and to honor the survivors. 82 years have passed since the uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto on 19 April 1943. 80 years have passed since the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp was liberated by the Red Army on 17th January 1945. A long time measured against a human lifespan. We all have images in our hearts and minds that represent the horror of the Shoah to each of us. We have all seen those photographs that have long since become symbols. We have seen the photograph of the young boy with raised hands as he is being forced out of the bunkers in the Warsaw Ghetto and marched at gunpoint to the deportation area. We have seen the black and white videos filmed by the liberators. We have seen the heaped bodies of the dead, the gaunt faces of the living. We have seen all of this time and again for 80 years. It is necessary, and yet there is a danger in it too. The oft-seen images, the well-known words of warning, the routine of remembrance bring with them the danger of a false and deceptive certainty. And this, of course, applies to everybody who is not a survivor himself or herself. They make it easy for us to believe that we have fully understood what happened. They make it easy for us to believe that we know everything. And they make it easy for us to give it to the temptation to file away all of these images, stories, and words in a large box labeled, "This was all a very long time ago." They also tempt us to believe it surely can never happen again. But time does not change what happened. Historical truth cannot be packed away. We must face up to the historical truth anew time and again. And we cannot let up in our efforts to tell later generations about it. Because, as Primo Levi once wrote, the plague has died away, but the infection still lingers, and it would be foolish to deny it. 80 years have passed. We will have fewer and fewer opportunities to hear first-hand accounts of survivors and witnesses. For young people in particular, we will have to find new ways of remembering. It is a duty for our generation to work against forgetting, a duty that we cannot fail in. This is why I am so thankful at this time in particular for everybody in New England who has dedicated their lives to remembrance and education about the Holocaust. I am thankful for the Holocaust Remembrance and Education Centers. I am thankful for the Holocaust memorials in Boston, Providence, New Haven, and elsewhere. Earlier this year, I visited several of them. Standing there, reading the names of concentration and extermination camps all across Europe meant standing before an unavoidable truth. Germans organized and committed this crime against humanity. Germans opened up this inhuman abyss. They planned, measured, and calculated it. The victims walked into this abyss and on to an end. These places make it clear to everyone that the Shoah is a part of German history. It is part of our identity, whether or not we want it to be. There is no end to remembrance, and there is no line that can be drawn under our responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, never again does not only mean that Jewish people have to be able to live safely in Germany, in Europe, in Israel, in the United States. It means that they are and will remain part of a shared we in my country, in Germany. When antisemitism is an everyday reality in my country, on our streets and public squares, in schools and universities, in my country with its history, it affects all of us. Never again must we allow our society to be divided into us and the other. Germany has learned from its past. We wrote our post-war constitution based on the lessons we learned. Human dignity shall be inviolable. This is the very first sentence of the German constitution. Never again is also written into all the decisive articles of our constitution. That is why freedom of opinion, freedom of speech, freedom of belief and religion, freedom of science and the arts are some of its non-negotiable values, as are the equality of all people before the law and the ban on discrimination of all kind. But laws and institutions are never enough. The words of Pastor Martin Niemöller at the New England Holocaust Memorial remind us that the responsibility for never again, the responsibility for speaking up instead of remaining passive and indifferent, is placed in the hands of every individual. These lessons remain relevant in a changing country and a changing world. In Germany, so far, they have grounded us, guaranteed us decades of peace within and without. They have allowed trust to grow amongst our partners in Europe and the world, and among those who were once the Germans' victims. A trust that continues to move me deeply. Each time I have the immense privilege of restoring German citizenship to those whose families were stripped of it by the Nazis. I always tell these people, these new citizens, we thank you for your confidence in our country. We will do everything we can to make and keep Germany a place where Jews can live in freedom and safety. We take it as a symbol of hope that, even after the darkest moments in history, of our history, there is a common future for us together. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Ames, and I am the Program Director for the Schechter Holocaust Services Program at Jewish Family and Children's Service of Greater Boston. It is my esteemed pleasure today to introduce Tamara Levovich. Tamara was just 3 and a half when the Second World War arrived on her doorstep. Today, you'll hear her story of hardship and the trauma of living in Leningrad in the 1940s. You will also meet an inspirational, resilient woman. When Tamara arrived in the United States in 1980, she knew just one English word: unfortunately. Quite fortunately, however, Tamara has an infectious positivity. A couple weeks ago, she told me, "I like life. That's my specialty." She has an upbeat demeanor and a way of recalling happy memories from dark, unimaginable times. She has demonstrated this forward focus throughout her life, describing how she carried on after she lost her mother, husband, and sister in close proximity. Tamara told me, "At 72, I had to start my life all over again." She learned to drive and play piano, a wonderful tribute to her sister Margarita, who was a musical entertainer all her life. To all of you here today, thank you. Thank you for your time and attention, for bringing life and meaning to the phrase, never forget. There is no substitute for a first-hand account, so without further ado, here's Tamara.
Hi. I always regretted not asking my parents more about their life in the Soviet Union. Their life, they lived through a time far more frightening than my generation ever knew, facing hunger, revolution, civil war, 2 world wars, and the relentless years of Stalinist terror. The year 1938, in particular, was a nightmare. Hardly a family was spared the pain of having a loved one arrested, sent to Gulag, or executed. I was born in that very year, 1938, in Leningrad. My older sister, Margarita, 2.5 years my senior, was the one who named me Tamara after her best friend in the courtyard of the building. World War II came to the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, when I was just 3.5 years old. That summer, my mother, Margarita, and I were vacationing near the Finland border It's a short train ride from Leningrad. On the night of June 22, German artillery began bombarding the city outskirts. Terrified, my mother hid us under the bed, covering us with mattresses in a desperate attempt to shield us from the explosion. At dawn, we took the first train back to Leningrad. Soon after, authorities ordered the evacuation of the young children gathering from the railroad station for transport. Parents were not informed of the children's destination. Margarita and I kissed our parents goodbye and boarded the train with the other frightening children. The station was filled with the sound of weepings, as no one knew if their farewell would be final. As the train began to move, my mother, unable to bear our cries, ran after it. Miraculously, she managed to jump into the platform and slipped into the carriage. She hid under the benches where the children lay motioning for us to remain silent. She spent the entire night there, listening the sobs and around her. The next day, near Novgorod, the train was suddenly attacked by Luftwaffe bombers. Panicked children fled in all directions, many falling victim to the strikes. My mother found Margarita and me shivering in a ditch beside the tracks, and gathering all her strength, ran with us to the nearby village, where she found a man with a horse-drawn cart and paid him to take us back to Leningrad. In Leningrad, we attempted to evacuate again, but securing a train ticket was nearly impossible. Eventually, we managed to board the last train out of the city, bound after Altai Krai in the east. The day was August 27, 1941. Shortly after our departure, the Wehrmacht completed its encirclement of Leningrad, subjecting it to the 900 days blockade. Over 1 million citizens perished, mostly from starvation, cold, and bombing. My father remained in the city, awaiting his military draft. He was on the brink of the death from the starvation when he was finally called up at the end of 1941. As a sergeant of the Soviet army, he fought on the Eastern Front in Belarus and later in Manchuria. He returned in 1946 to children who barely remember him. He passed away in 1963. I recall the years Margarita, my mother, and I spent in evacuation in Slavgorod, Altai Krai. Our small room had a large wood-burning stove at its center, our lifeline. We cooked on it, huddled around it for warmth, and even slept on that. Slavgorod was bleak and impoverished. Summer were scorching with no trees, no greens. Winter were brutally cold. There were no utilities or infrastructure. Roads were made of mud and water came from deep wells. To provide for us, my mother worked tirelessly, teaching dance at the local small theater by day and cleaning the city hall by night. Margarita, at 7 years old, started first grade with, I remained home, battling the cockroaches and beetles that infested our room with a mop. We had no money for toys. Once I shaped a lamp of raw flour with a doll and baked it. The doll became my companion until Margarita, in her hunger, began secretly gnawing on it. Surrounded by other desperate evacuees, many unsupervised children turned to hooliganism and petty crime. Jewish kids were often targeted by the children of Volga Germans, whose family had been exiled to the province and who harbored hope for the Nazi victory. Margarita defended me fiercely, often getting into a fight on my behalf. One day, our mother fell ill with typhus and was taken to the hospital. Typhus was claiming thousands of lives daily, and she feared she would never return. Before leaving, she entrusted us with her wedding ring for safekeeping. Naturally, we played with it and we lost it. The day after Mother was taken away, a relative visited and brought us 3 dozen eggs. They were meant to last us for weeks. Starving, Margarita and I ate them all in one sitting. Hunger was a constant torment. Along the neighborhood, children we scavenged in garbage bins for vegetables, peels, and food waste. Sometimes I found discarded candy wrappers and dream of the sweets they only contain. Weeks later, our mother miraculously returned home from the hospital, having survived typhus through sheer will to live. But the same cart that had brought her home took Margarita away to the hospital. She had fallen ill with typhus as well. I, meanwhile, suffered from lice, and as late was discovered, tapeworm, what drained me of energy, causing me to frequent faint. Weeks later, Margarita recovered and returned home. She started going to school again, some days sneaking into the classroom. Some days sneaked me into the classroom with her and hiding me under her desk. During lunch, she would secretly give me a small bitter sagebrush bun, my greatest delight. I remember vividly the day of May 9, 1945, when the radio announced the victory. People flooded the street, crying with joy, embracing and dancing. At the end of 1945, we joined back to Leningrad in boxcar, a trip that took several weeks. At one stop, Margarita and I crawled under the train to play, when it suddenly started moving. Margarita barely escaped, but I was trapped between the wheels. Instinctively, I flattened myself against the ground as the train rumbled over me. The sharp-eyed passenger pulled the emergency brake, and the strong hands dragged me out, terrified but unharmed. At another stop, a local authority commanded the train, forcing able-bodied adults into the yard to unload freight. Others were told to find their own way home. My mother traded a bunch of onion for transport, and we reached Leningrad on the back of the horse-drawn cart. In Leningrad, half of our apartment had been given to another family, so we settled in the remaining 2 rooms. The city was in ruins, no electricity, no running water. Bread was rationed at 300 grams per person per day, often baked with cellulose or sawdust. When my father finally returned in 1946, I was 8. We had not seen him in 5 years. Looking at him, I said, "If you are my father, pick me up on your arm." Exhausted, he smiled apologetically and responded in Yiddish, "Ich bin nicht genug stark, ihr seht it as a great medal," means I'm not strong enough. You're such a big girl now. Thank you.
Hello, we are GAN Academy's Shenanigans a cappella group, and today we're going to be singing a song for you about pain and healing and connection called Halev Sheli by Ishai Ribo. Just getting a starting note. הלב שלי נקרע לשניים, מה שלא ראתה שפחה למים, כמו סופה מן הים הולם, כמו תרופה של מרים פועם ואין תרופה בעולם. הלב שלי מרים ידיים, כבר מועד לא עומד על הרגליים, שבר כלי שאין בו כפמה, והשמיים הם לי חומה, איך אעבור בתוך הים ביבשה. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, ללקח בי הכל. ורק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב שלי נקרע לשניים, חציו השם וחציו לשם שמיים, כמו סופה מן הים הולם, כמו תרופה של מרים פועם, אין תרופה בעולם ללב. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. ורק אתה אני מול ים שלם ולב שבור, ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל, ורק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב, ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל, ורק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב.
Thank you to the Ghan students for their very beautiful music. It has always been important that this commemoration of the Yom HaShoah is the Boston community's commemoration, not just the Jewish community's event. In that spirit, it is the tradition for the mayor of Boston to be part of this day. It's my honor to introduce Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who consistently speaks out against antisemitism, bias, and hate in her time as city councilor and in her tenure as mayor. She has joined us many times at the New England Holocaust Memorial and also days after October 7th, when our community deeply needed public voices of allyship. Mayor Wu, thank you for being here today and sending a message that today is a day for our entire city to commemorate.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to all of the partners each and every day who make it possible for our Jewish community members to thrive, but also to deepen and continue to grow the long-standing relationship between the City of Boston and our Jewish community organizations and residents. To the Jewish Community Relations Council, thank you, Jeremy, and the entire Greater Boston Jewish community, thank you for creating this space where we can come together, reflect, and remember. And I just want to stand in gratitude for the incredible words and the life of Miss Tamara Lvovich for being here, for sharing your story. I see many, many elected officials around the room, so I'm not going to try to step into the missing some and others. I do see some members of our city council who are here, so thank you so much. And thank you to members of the state legislature and so many others who are here who partner with us every single day in the city of Boston. Just a few weeks ago, Jewish families all around the world gathered around tables set with shank bones and matzah, hard-boiled eggs, and the Haggadah to reflect on their ancestors' struggles and the fight to find freedom. Together, they say, "Next year in Jerusalem," a message of resilience and the enduring understanding that the Jewish community here in Boston and all over the world will always have a place to call home. The story of Passover is a story of finding safe haven in the face of violence and hatred, and it's a story that echoes in our recent past and in our present. Today on Yom HaShoah, we reflect on a similar story, a day when we seek to understand the worst of humanity, when we shine a light on the shadows to study the dark, and in doing so, drive it out of our world. We seek to understand not just how something like this could happen, but why it did, and why so many people stood by and did nothing. we seek to understand a loss that defies words and spans generations. Understanding is a bridge through the void of horror and of grief. And it's the path to a solid ground on the other side where all of us try to live, in this world built on community and the resounding conviction, never again. Because the Holocaust teaches us what happens when we fail to check power and hold it accountable, when we fail to speak up for the rights of all people, when we fail to see ourselves in those being erased. But it also teaches us that there's always a way forward, through remembering, through faith and community, through the courage and empathy it takes to recognize the humanity in each and every one of us, and even and especially in those in whom we see the least of ourselves. This work of reflection, remembrance, resilience, and courage is the work of ensuring never again. And it's not work that can be done in isolation. It requires support and it requires community. So to all of our community partners, members of our diplomatic corps, our residents here today, and the thousands you represent all across the city and the greater Boston region, to our entire Jewish community here in Boston, thank you. At the city, we are so proud to have the partnerships with our Jewish community that date back more than a century. And we are proud of the ways in which our partnership has made Boston one of the safest, most joyful places to be Jewish in the history of the world. Here in Boston, we take that sacred trust with the utmost responsibility. We will always join you in this work of reflection. We will always find a way forward together. Here in Boston, you will always have a home. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jack Arbeiter. In 2006, my father, Izzy Arbeiter, who worked tirelessly to educate young people about the Holocaust and the consequences of bigotry, created the Israel Arbeiter Holocaust Essay Contest. Students from across the greater Boston area create essays that address the painful history of the Holocaust. Their role in carrying forward the legacy of the survivors and standing up to hatred in all of its forms is a critical part of our mission to ensure that the Holocaust is never forgotten and never repeated. Each year, a panel of judges reviews the essays that are submitted by our students. The authors of the top 3 essays in the upper and lower divisions each receive a trip to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. We have 6 incredible student winners this year. Their intelligent and insightful essays give us hope for the future and ensure that stories like my father's will not be forgotten. I know he would be heartened to see them all here today. In the lower division, our 3 winners in alphabetical order are Jacob Brenner, 7th grade, Winchester McCall Middle School. Wait a minute. Jessica Merrill, 8th grade, Weston Middle School. Ashley Symbol, 8th grade, Lexington Montessori School. In the upper division, our 3 winners, also in alphabetical order, are Leah Farb, 11th grade, Nobles in Greeno School. Navia Karki, 10th grade, Bedford High School. Daniel Shayer, 11th grade, Boston University Academy. Congratulations to all of our winners.
Kindly rise for El Mole Rachamim. El Mole Rachamim Shochen Bameromim. El Mole Rachamim Shochen Bameromim. Hamsei menucha nechana al kein hashcha hashchina b'malot kidoshim utehorim b'malot kidoshim utehorim utehorim kizohar horokia kizohar Horokia, Kizahar, Horokia, Mazirim, Nishamot, Ha, Kedoshim, Veha, Tehorim, Veshergu, Veshenish, Chetu, Veshen, Sorfu, Vishenit beu neshiku al kiddush Hashem ba avor shebli neder eiten tzedakah vi'at hazkarat nishma tehem Began Eden Teyemunucha Tam Lachen Baal Harachamim Baal Harachamim Yastirem Beseter Kinofav Leolamim Vitzror, Bitzror, Hachayim, et Nishmotehem. Vitzror, Bitzror, Hachayim, et Nishmotehem. Adonai hu nachalotam. Ve'anuchu v'shalom al mishkotehem v'nomar Amen. We recite together the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yom echon uv'chayech chol beit Yisrael ba'gola levizman kariv v'yamaru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach leolam leolmei olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha b'richu, le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran v'alma v'yamru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromach, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamaru. Amen.
Gesher tsar me'od, Gesher tsar me'od, Gesher tsar me'od, Kol ha'olam kulo, Gesher tsar me'od, Gesher tsar me'od.
Lo לפחד, I promise I will not sing. Before I commence the closing remarks, I just want to recognize a number of dignitaries in the audience this morning, in addition to Mayor Wu. I believe her child, who is the youngest member of the City Council, is also with us. Thank you. Councilor Ed Flynn, thank you for being here. Senator Rebecca Rausch, thank you so much. Representative Tommy Vitolo, City Councilor Ben Weber, and the Grand Rabbi Korf, Honorary Consul General of Austria. Thank you all, and if I missed anybody, it's somebody else's fault. As we come to the end of our program, on behalf of the Yom HaShoah Committee, I want to extend our gratitude to all the participants in this year's program, especially for the beautiful and stirring music provided by Zachor, excuse me, I always get the name mixed up, Zachor Chorale, and the Shenanigans, to Consuls General Sharoni and Kriebik, Mayor Wu, again, for your very nice and stirring remarks. I would like to specifically and most especially thank our survivor speaker, Tamara Lvovich, for her moving and memorable eyewitness account. Thank you. A special thank you to Faye Ruth Fisher, who is hiding behind David Schechter, and Sarah White, and all the others at JCRC for all of their hard work. And to all of you who have joined us in person today and by way of internet, thank you for being here to remember the 6 million and to honor the survivors. Thank you for being here. In a few minutes, you're all invited to take a short walk to the New England Holocaust Memorial for a brief ceremony and a moment of silent prayer and reflection. Please allow the program participants to exit first and then follow us down after the singing of the Hymn of the Partisans. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the commemoration and dedication of the memorial. At that particular ceremony in 1995, Elie Wiesel of blessed memory shared the following warning, which sadly resonates even more today than it did back then. And he said, and I quote, "We cannot give evil another chance. Look at these towers, passersby. Try to imagine what they really evoke, what they really mean, what they symbolize. They evoke an era of incommensurate darkness, an era in history when civilization lost its humanity and humanity its soul," end quote. It is precisely that darkness that the memorial was designed to illuminate as a beacon of light. It is my sincere hope that when we leave here today, it is not in despair, but it is with a renewed commitment to repairing our very much broken world. Speak out against injustice and hate, and speak up for those whose voices struggle to be heard. Become part of that beacon of light. Thank you all.
Please rise. Sag mir keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg, Gott Himmel im Leine, verstell im Leiteg. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau, das Wetter beugt und unser Tag, wir sein in da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau, das Wetter beugt und unser Tag, wir sein in da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weißem Land von Schnee. Wir kommen on mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Und wo gefallen ist, das spritzt in unser Blut. wettert unser Glore, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen ist, so spritzt in unser Blut. Sprossen wettert unser Glore, unser Mut. Spät die Morgen sind begilt in uns dem Hain. Und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind. Nur heute versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Nur heute versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und in den Blei. Sie ist nicht kein Lied für eine feugelhafte Frei. Das hat der Volk zwischen fallende Gewand. Das Lied gesingen mit einer Garnet in der Hand. Das hat der Volk zwischen fallende Gewand. Das Lied gesingen mit einer Garnet in die Hand. Das sagt nicht kein Mal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg.